actually inspired me to actually do this video is from a conversation that I was actually listening to. I think between Joey Dlamini, she goes by the name Unlearning with Joey Dlamini here on YouTube, and Lucretia Extine, she goes by Lucretia Extine here on YouTube. And they were actually talking about relationships, marriage, just general relationships, but the Proverbs 31 thingy came up, and I just remember like what and everything that they were actually saying, that I felt the very same things concerning what they were saying about the Proverbs 31 woman, mainly about the way it was taught, when we were growing up, that we just needed to aspire, or that the Proverbs 31 woman was just like this perfect woman. And as women, we needed to be perfect. We needed to, make sure we get married, have children, work in the home, still work outside of the home, like have careers and professions outside of the home, and still come back and be champions. Like, just the way it was preached was just almost as if it was overwhelming, and it was truly unrealistic. And I think Joey was actually saying that she said something that along the lines that she actually didn't want to be, this Proverbs 31, that she intentionally rebelled around the idea of wanting to be a Proverbs 31 woman. And I'm paraphrasing here. I might have heard my own things, but I'm sure she said something along those lines. But I resonated so much with what she said, and the whole thing has just been lingering in my heart so much. And then a few days after that live or something like that, then Lucretia went to go and post, a post on Instagram, around, her like reintroducing herself or something like that. But basically around her wanting to be, that the Proverbs 31 woman actually had qualities that she actually wanted for herself. And I thought to myself, that is so true, that at times we hear preachings in churches, or preachings around us, or teachings, in our communities, from our families, and because the narrative around that teaching is so oppressive, we rebel the whole lesson that comes out of the story itself. And so I believe that there's qualities within the Proverbs 31 chapter, and qualities within the Proverbs 31 woman that I think today we can still abstract and still learn from them. Now, I must put a disclaimer out there to say that the cultural setting and the historical setting was different from ours, right? And hence, the application of those values will be quite different, because we are in a different culture, and the way we do things today is completely different from back then. So for the purpose of this video, I have picked out 5 important lessons that I drew out from the Proverbs 31 woman, virtues that I think truly define a Proverbs 31 woman. But while I'm saying that, I do also need to put an extra disclaimer in saying that though the Proverbs 31 woman does mention, that she has a husband and that she has children, I don't think that the virtues and the lessons in it is only for married people. I think as a single, that there's still values and there's still virtues and there's still lessons that you can abstract from the verses that can still be applicable in your life and in your surroundings. I also think that it's very helpful for you to take with you into this video that the Proverbs 31 woman is not about a perfect woman. And that's truly what I want us to take out of this video, and what I want to give into this video is that the Proverbs 31 woman is not about a perfect woman. So in no ways am I trying to define a perfect woman, because what is that, child? Is there such thing as a perfect human being to start off with? To take this piece of scripture, Proverbs 31, the Proverbs 31 woman, as an ideal to aspire to be a better woman, aspire to be a better person, aspire to be a better servant towards God, just a better person holistically. Well, I've said quite a lot, so let's get right into the video. Point number 1, trustworthy. When you read through the verses of Proverbs 31, you see this Proverbs 31 woman mentioned as a woman of noble character, and that her worth is far above rubies. This trait signifies that she can be relied upon, almost in a way that her word is her bond, that she's an honest person and that the people around her can actually rely on her. Now, the fact that people can rely on you, especially the people who are close to you, that is a beautiful virtue to have. I know in the world that we're living in, it is so difficult, obviously, to show up for so many people, because at the end of the day, you need to take care of yourself in order for you to take care of people. But primarily your family, right? If you are a married woman, your first priority, or I want to believe that your first priority is your family. And you want to be a person, well, let me speak of myself. This is such a beautiful virtue for me, because for my immediate family, I want to know, or I want them rather to know that they can rely on me, and that I can be honest with them, and that when I say something, I'm not just saying something just to, tickle their fancies, that I take my word seriously, that I can be trustworthy. I think trustworthy is a character that we see in God. We can trust him in his word. If he said he's going to do this for us, he will do it for us. And I think because it is a virtue found in God, then it's something that we should see as beautiful, and it's something that we should want for our own selves, that our immediate family and the people who kind of like depend on us see us as trustworthy. And when we give them our word, that we take it seriously, because we take ourselves seriously. We take the words that come out of our mouth seriously. A noble character suggesting that she has qualities such as integrity, that she will strive to do what's right no matter who's looking, that she upholds moral standards in her actions, how she carries herself, and her decisions as well. She is worth far above rubies. Now, you see a lot of people quoting, this phrase in Proverbs 31, that I'm far above rubies. This phrase actually highlights the immense value of her character. This is one of the things that truly stands out for me, out of the character, or out of the characteristics of the Proverbs 31 woman, is her character. And this is one of the things the Apostle Paul is actually speaking about in the book of Timothy, when he speaks about that women should not adorn themselves with braidings and outward clothing. And what the Apostle Paul was basically saying is that as a woman, we should not be focusing on our outside appearance and trusting that to sort of portray the people that we are. We should not focus on the beauty of our outside appearance, or should I add only. But the beauty that we should actually be focusing on is our character, the beauty of our character. And obviously in that church, the context of the verse is that you had women who were dressing up well, beautiful women, but yet they were not speaking to each other within their congregation. They adorned themselves outwardly, but yet their characters were not as beautiful as the way they looked. As much as we want to look good outwardly, what's the point of looking good out, especially as godly women? What's the point of looking good outwardly, yet in our hearts and in our characters just basically kind of undo the outward work? Because for me, honestly, and this is, for me, if a person has a good character, it's almost as if your outward beauty becomes 10 times what I'm physically seeing. And when your character is not good, though you might be a pretty girl, well, it doesn't take away from your prettiness, but I'm just like, for me, it just becomes a bitter sweet type of thing, that yeah, you are pretty, but your character just kind of decreases certain points from your personality and from you as a person. I don't know. That is just personally for me. And so I think the true investment, yes, the investment is also in the physical, but the true and the real investment, especially as godly women, is in the character. And so when we speak about that we are far above the price of rubies, it truly should be a reflection of our character. Our characters are priceless and immeasurable, and obviously our characters then speak to who we are at the core of our being. Point number 2, fear of the Lord. She is a woman of faith, revering God and following his guidance. This speaks to the fact that she holds God in the highest regard, and that her faith is not a superficial thing, but rather it is a fundamental aspect of her life. And what do I mean by saying that her faith is not a superficial thing? I think, especially if you've grown up in the church and you've been part of Christianity for a long time, there's certain habits that you can sort of pick up, that over social media, it's not truly easy to tell whether a person is in a good sort of relationship with God, because we can all just take scriptures from the internet or scriptures from a Bible app and just post it on social media. We can all do that. That can come off as if she, or this type of woman, as she reverences God and that she has a personal relationship with the Lord because she posts scripture. Now, to a certain extent, that can be superficial because we don't truly know what's going on behind doors. So the fear of the Lord that I'm actually referring to, taking or extracting it from the Proverbs 31 woman, is that she has a personal relationship with the Lord, and that she regards, the Lord's commandments and the Lord's instructions towards us. She regards it very highly in her life. That over and above just posting and speaking about God on social media or speaking about God in passing, in the private places, behind closed doors, she has a personal relationship with the Lord, and that her heart truly strives to please the Lord. Her heart truly strives to do what the Lord expects of her. Point number 3, she is praised by her family. In Proverbs 31, it particularly speaks about her husband and her children, that her husband and her children actually praise her. And I think this is truly a testament or testimony, in a sense, of the character that she has, that they sing and they praise her because of the character that she possesses, that she has this private relationship and she has this intimate relationship with the Lord, but the intimacy that she has with the Lord is kind of portrayed in her decision making. It's portrayed in her interaction with her children and with her husband, and thus they praise her. The children and her husband hold her in high regard and they express admiration of her. I don't think the verse is actually suggesting that, her husband and her children should put her on this high pedestal and that they should worship the ground that she walks on. But I do think it is sort of a reflection that this type of woman actually practices what she says. She practices what she says, that she doesn't tell her kids, have respect, yet she doesn't have respect, or she doesn't have respect for her children or for her husband. She tells them to have respect, yet she also possesses and shows respect towards them, and hence she is then worthy of, this honor because she practices what she preaches. And I think in turn, this then has a positive impact into their lives, the children's lives, because now she almost becomes a role model to her kids, and it then contributes or brings about a positive impact in their lives. Point number 4, compassionate. Compassion is not just a feeling, but it is a call to action. And I was thinking about this sometime weeks back, and I was thinking to myself that compassion obviously is a feeling, but for me, I take serving so seriously. I think about stories that I used to listen to, or stories that I grew up hearing about my great-grandmother, when she used to speak about how her neighbors used to come up to her and she, would give them, a cup of sugar or a bag or a can of, a can of cool beans or a can of cool beans or something. But her kindness was not just, her compassion was not just a feeling, but it was a call to an action. And I think of myself of how I want a home. I want to cultivate a home where I teach my kids to be able to play out, or to be able to show acts of kindness towards other people. That showing kindness towards other people and being compassionate towards other people does not take away from you. And for me, this is so important because obviously my husband and I are in a ministry of serving. Like, you cannot be dealing with people and not have a heart of service. So this is something so big for me and something that I want to cultivate in my home so much. The Proverbs 31 woman is willing to share her resources. She's willing to share her time to the people who are in need. And I know in a world where, there's so many activities, like there's just so many things to do and we end up tired. But for me, this matters. Like, this is something that at the core of my heart. For instance, if someone sends me an inbox or asks me, questions about a Bible verse, in my head, I'm not thinking, like you can use Google, like this is my family time and whatnot. And I understand for some people the dynamics are different and whatnot. But for me, I am always willing to share my resources and my time, especially to people who are in need. It's just my way of showing my generosity. And I believe that generosity doesn't always have to speak to money, giving out money. Generosity at times can speak to any sort of resource that you have to you, just availing it to the people who are in need. Personally, I don't want my generosity to only be limited to the four corners of my household. I don't want my generosity to only be limited to my family. I want it to extend to other people who are not my family, or to other people who might not necessarily be on good terms with me, or other people that I might not necessarily be my favorite type of people. I think maybe it does kind of speak to the ministry that my husband and I are called into, but generosity is such a big thing for me that I abstracted from the characteristics and the traits that the Proverbs 31 woman has. And just one of the things that I truly want to grow in, and I want my children to have, that I want them to be generous. I want them to not only be generous in their giftings towards their family and towards spaces that's going to pay them, but to also be generous in people's lives, even though they aren't going to directly benefit from it, or benefit in a monetary term from it. I hope that makes sense, but yeah, that should make sense. Point number 5, she works diligently. And what stood out for me when you read the verses around her working in the home and still outside of the home, she's still an entrepreneur. What stands out for me is the word diligently, as that, and I think it just speaks to work ethic, that anything she considers her work, she treats it seriously, whether it be in the home, whatever task she has, or whatever work is committed in her hands, she treats it with importance and she does it well. And I think that's just such a beautiful thing. And not only can we carry it out in our homes, that we take our roles, for instance, as mothers, as wives, and whatever roles we carry in our home and whatever work we do in our home, that we carry it with pride and that we do it properly. When you carry something with pride, you do it properly. You're not just doing it for the sake of just getting things done, but you find a level of joy in doing it for your family. I was actually saying this other day that before I got married, I hated cooking. I thought to myself, like, I just needed a man who knew how to cook, because but fast forward to now, I am in a marriage and my husband does not cook, like hardly ever cooks, and my husband enjoys and loves home cooked food. And even on days where he's like, my love, let's just give the stove a rest and let's just go out and go out for dinner or buy takeaways, I always want to cook, and it's because for me it's an act of service, and it's a way of showing my love, because I know he enjoys home cooked food. I know before I got married, I always took cooking as like it's a chore, because growing up, that's generally like how I treated it, that cooking was a chore. But now, because I know that my husband enjoys it, and it kind of has become my job, and though I'm not going to put a disclaimer on that, but it is kind of like my job. I do most of the cooking in the house. I do it with pride and I do it with joy, only because I know my husband enjoys it so much. And that's the aspect of doing stuff diligently, not only in the home, whatever task or whatever area you find yourself in, or whatever profession that you find yourself in, that you're doing your work diligently, that you're doing your work to the best of your ability. And that's truly something that I admire out of the Proverbs 31 woman, is her work ethic, that she takes her work and anything that touches her hand, she takes it so seriously. And that's something that I truly need to, pull up my socks in taking my work ethic seriously, and not just taking it as in, just to pass time, or just because I know I have to do it. Well, yeah, guys, those are my 5 points on what a Proverbs 31 woman is, and truly virtues that I think are beautiful, timeless virtues that I think women in our today culture, and women in our society today can still kind of grab onto and still kind of pursue, because you know what, they are beautiful virtues to pursue. If you have not liked this video by now, please do make sure that you like the video. Please do make sure that you subscribe to my channel. It is absolutely for free of charge. Share this video with someone if you will. You're also more than welcome to leave a comment down below and tell me, what did you think of this video? From my side, guys, thank you so much for your time, and I'll see you on the next one.